Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. In this lesson, we're going to be speaking about La النافية للجنس. La النافية للجنس is the La النافية that negates الجنس. And الجنس means the species, the type, the idea that the word denotes, if you will. So the entire species and the entire genus that this word indicates. So I'll bring you an example to make this clear. When we say the Shahada, we say La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. The la in the shahada is la nafiyatul lil-jins. So when we're saying la ilaha, it does not just mean there's no one worthy of worship except Allah. It's a bit more powerful than that. It means any single thing that can be called the ilah, any single thing that is part of the species, part of the type, part of the genus of what can be called the ilah, a god or something that's worshipped, does not deserve to be worshipped except Allah. So Allah Nafi to jins is one, if not the strongest way to negate something, because you're negating the entire idea and anything that has to do with this word. La ilaha, any single thing that can be called an ilah is not deserving worship except Allah, illallah. So that is La Nafi to jins and how strong and powerful it is. Now, what exactly does it do though, and why is it part of the mansubat? So لا نافية للجنس is a harf first and foremost. تنفي الجنس, it negates the genus, the species, the type, and we explain what that means. It negates the entire idea that this word is pointing to, if you will, or the species is part of, quote unquote. In terms of its action, its i'rab action, تنصب الاسم وترفع الخبر, is going to make the ism that follows it mansub, and is going to make the khabar that follows it marfu'. So it's very similar to inna. Just like inna makes a noun that comes after mansub, inna Allah, and it makes its khabar marfu' rahimun. Same thing here, but we're going to see that la nafiyatun jins is slightly different. So that's why la nafiyatun jins is one of the nawasib, is one of the things that are going to make the noun that come after it mansub. And that noun that comes after, which is mansub, is part of the mansubat, it's part of the nouns that are mansub, and that's why we're talking about it right now. So let's see an example of la nafiyatun jins. We have here la taliba ilmin mamqut. La here is la nafiyatun jins. So it's going to what? Tansib al-isma. It's going to make the noun that comes after, which is talib, mansub. So that's why it's taliba and not talibu or talibi. Mamqut means, hatred or disliked. And it's the khabar. So now talib ilmin mamqut, in terms of its meaning, means any single person that can be called a student of knowledge, any single person that falls under the species, the type of a talib al-ilm, is not mamqut. Is not mamqut, and mamqut means disliked or not liked and so on and so forth, hated. So obviously there's a type of mubalagha, type of exaggeration in this, but I think the point is clear in terms of the action that it does. Okay, now how is la nafiyatun in jins different than inna? It's different than inna because it has three conditions for it to actually function. شروط عمل لا نافية للجنس. So what's meant here by conditions is these conditions need to be fulfilled in order for it to do its action, which is to make the noun that comes after it mansub. If these conditions are not met, the noun that comes after it is not going to be mansub. But there are some details that we're going to see there. So what are these three conditions? The first one is that the ism and the khabar need to be nakiratani. They need to be a nakira. Both its ism talib here and its khabar mamqut need to be nakira. They cannot be marfu'. They cannot be ma'rifa. They cannot be definite. So they can't have an L in it. They can't be a proper name. They can't be a pronoun, and so on and so forth. Second condition is al-mubashara. Al-mubashara. Al-mubashara means that there's nothing coming between the la and its ism. Al-mubashara means that there's nothing coming between the la and its ism. If there's something that's coming between the la and its ism, or if the ism or the khabar is ma'rifa, then it's not going to make the noun that comes after it mansub. We're going to see that it makes it pretty much, it just stays marfu'. Then the third condition that it needs to fulfill for it to make the noun that comes after it mansub is عدم التكرار. التكرار means repetition. So عدم التكرار means that the la is not being repeated. The la nafiyatun jins is not being repeated back to back. If it's being repeated back to back, then its action is not going to happen, although there are some details there that we're going to see. So pretty much these three conditions need to be met in order for the la nafiyatun jins to function. So what happens if one of these conditions are not met? So for example, what happens if al-mubashara is not met and there's something coming in between the la or the ism? Or what happens if you repeat the ism? Or sorry, if you repeat the la nafiyatu lil-jins, you do takrar. So let's start with the first one. So إذا كانت غير مباشرة, if it's not mubashara, meaning that there's something coming in between the la nafiyatu lil-jins and its ism, what's going to happen is وجب الرفع واستحسن التكرار. You're going to need to make the ism مرفوع. وجب وجوبا is going to be مرفوع. واستحسن التكرار, and it's recommended that you repeat the la. As you can see here. So this comes in the Quran in the verse لا فيها غول ولا هم عنها ينزفون. Allah says concerning the khamr of Jannah, لا فيها غول, there's not any type of headache that comes from the drinking the liquor. ولا هم عنها ينزفون, and they won't, lose their minds from pretty much drinking it, lose their intellect or their senses. So here we have la nafiyatu lil-jins. This la here, the scholars say it's a la nafiyatu lil-jins, but because there's something coming in between the ism غول and the la, which is فيها, وجب التكرار or وجب الرفع, it's obligatory that you make غول مرفوع, and you can't say لا فيها غولة, it has to be غول. واستحسن التكرار, and it's recommended that you repeat it as Allah did here when he says لا فيها غول ولا هم عنها ينزفون. Another example, لا في الدار رجل ولا امرأة. There is not in the house a man and there isn't a woman. So this la here could be a la nafiyatu lil-jins. So because there's something coming in between the ism rajul and the la, which is fi da, the jar majrur, you're going to make wajab al-raf'u, you're going to make rajul marfu', and wastahsan, it's recommended, it's not necessary, but it's recommended that you repeat the la with another negation after it. So la fi da rajulun wa la maratun. Now this la here will be called mulgha. Mulgha means nullified of its action. This la here is going to be called la nafiyatu lil-jins mulgha. That's negated, that's nullified of its action. So that's what happens when this condition is not met. When this condition is not met, it's very simple. We're just going to make it marfu. For example, if here was al-ilmi, it would be la talibul ilmi mamqut. Now, for this one here, عدم التكرار, it's where we have to explain. So إذا كان مباشرة مع التكرار, if the la nafiyatu lil-jins does has mubashara, this condition of mubashara is met, meaning that there's nothing coming in between the ism and the la. There's nothing coming in between the ism and the la, but at-takrar, but the person decided to actually repeat the la. So the person did not follow the third condition. So if someone follows the first condition and the second condition, but not the third condition, this is what we're talking about here. What happens when that happens? Jaza, it's permissible for you to do al-ihmal or al-a'mal. Al-a'mal is that you actually activate the action of the la. So you make it mansub pretty much. You make the noun comes after mansub. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. This la is la nafiyatu lil-jins, just like the line la ilaha illallah. So because we have a repetition of the la here, la, but there's mubashara, I'm allowed to do a'mal. I'm allowed to actually make the noun comes after it mansub, or if I want to, I can do ihmal. Ihmal is that I do not make it do any action, and it's not going to have any effect on the i'rab or the word that comes after. So you're going to say la hawlun wa la quwwatun illa billah. So you can do either or. You can say la hawlun wa la quwwatun illa billah, and it's also permissible and recommended, if you will, to say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Both are fine. So to sum it up, the la nafiyatu lil-jins in against the genus, the entire species, the entire thing that comes after it, it makes the noun comes after it mansub, and it makes the khabar comes after it marfu'. But that's only going to happen if these three conditions are met. The first one is the ism and the khabar are nakiratani. If this is not met, it's not going to make the noun comes after marfu' mansub, sorry. And the second condition is that mubashara needs to be there. And mubashara means that there's nothing coming in between the la nafiyatu lil-jins and the ism. If these two conditions are not met, then the noun that comes after is going to be marfu'. For the third condition, which is adm al-takrar, that the noun is not being repeated, or the la is not being repeated, for this condition here, if it's not met, you can do either or. So it's a condition that there's a bit more, space or in it, in the sense that you can do i'mal or you can do ihmal. Now there's still a bit more to talk about when it comes to la nafiyatu lil-jins, which will be covered in part 2 of this video.